Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here with Nassim Haramein. Hello.
Hello.
In Geneva, in Switzerland.
Yeah, Geneva was awesome last night, wasn't it?
How does it feel?
It feels great. This is the town I was born in.
Yeah.
My first time giving a talk here too.
Yeah. How was that? Because we organized for Nassim 3 amazing conferences. Nassim rocked, like he couldn't stop. Each conference lasts for 3-4 hours in Paris. We were in Toulouse and now in Geneva, the beautiful lake.
Yeah, where I was born.
Yeah, so you were born here. Because we don't really know. You're a bit of a mix, aren't you?
I am. I was born here in Geneva, in Carouge, and my mom is Italian, my father is Persian, and so I always dreamed of, 20 years ago I was thinking one day I will give a talk in Geneva, and here we were, 500 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was packed.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. It was an amazing crowd.
Yes.
Yeah, it really warmed my heart to come here in my birth town and have such a reception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that each city is as open as others? Because your talks are really open and you describe all your discoveries, your research, and you talk about the crystals and the new technology you're developing and even extraterrestrial beings and civilization out there. Do you feel it's open all around the world? Or?
It's amazing. I mean, the openness and people capability to hear stuff that I could never talk about prior. It really changed all around the world. It's just not the same, and it's really heartwarming to see the response of people and the capacity for people to compile information and follow the physics, even complex concepts in physics and all this. People are so on it, and they're so creative, and there's such amazing response. It's amazing what's going on out there right now.
But you make it accessible too, thank you.
Oh, well, I do my best. Some of that stuff is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people feel it, even if you don't get it intellectually or you don't get the details. It's not so much the details, it's what you feel and what resonates with you.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing. You see the response, and people are so touched. How much.
You mean beyond words, there is the energy, there is other kind of information that is invisible, that is transmitted and shared?
Absolutely. I think people recognize, certain levels of truth within themselves and certain feeling of connectivity. So, it kind of awakens things in them that they didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
And so many people come after and they say, you changed my life, and all the work you've done, it's changed the way I think of myself and the universe and the way I feel it in relationship to everything in the universe. And so it's so touching, and this is really why I do what I do. All the work in laboratory and all the hours,
20 years?
30 years now, and it's been it's been such a journey, and it's not just spiritual people out there. It's a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists, physicists, biologists, everybody. You can see the transformation happening.
Yeah.
And it's no longer just the weirdos out there.
Yeah.
It's the mainstream. It's people that are that have done studies, that are very well read and very well educated, that are really wanting to see beyond what is available out there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because some people say one day you'll have the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Do you think, what does it take to actually get a Nobel Prize?
Well, some of the discoveries I've done could warrant the Nobel Prize. For instance, the prediction I did of the radius of the proton, if it holds, it's holding so far. It was predicted in 2012. In 2013, it was confirmed in an accelerator here in Switzerland.
How crazy is that?
Yes.
Oh.
And if it continues to hold and it strongly supports the theory, and the theory is eventually accepted, it could warrant the Nobel Prize. I don't know. I'm not, worried about the Nobel Prize. It would be more that I would have a better and stronger impact on humanity if I receive such honorariums.
And more fundings.
Yeah, and more fundings, which would help the research, because that's critical at this point.
Yeah.
The funding in research in laboratory, we have a small lab, but doing research in physics is expensive, and we need support. And actually, we could make huge changes in our world if this is supported and it's brought forward. The technology that can come out of this series, that is now starting to really look like it's confirmed, not only in laboratory here on Earth, but as well from observation in cosmology. It leads to gravity control, it leads to energy production, it leads to a whole new world that can develop from it.
Because I saw you in the presentation hanging out with Foster Gamble that I've interviewed a long time ago.
Oh,
so
yes.
Here we're talking about free energy.
Mm-hmm.
What is the impact? I mean, on the research that you've made. I mean, how important it is for future technologies and what you're about to create with bigger fundings?
Well, there's obviously energy production, directly from the structure of the vacuum. I tend to not want to use free energy because it's not really free. It's just that we're extracting energy from a source that was previously unknown, right? Foster is working on Thrive 2. That's really exciting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's going to comment on all these technologies that are, the solutions that are emerging. So there's energy production, but there's gravity control as well, which means the next step for humanity, we built this whole civilization based on, we learned how to control electromagnetic fields. We made electricity, we use it to transfer information, we're doing it right now. The next step for humanity is to learn to control gravity. And, learn to live on the planet, but as well off the planet. Space exploration cannot really be done with rocketry. We need the next level. Rocketry is really like a technology of the Second World War. And it's really time for us to, and these equation tells us something much deeper about gravity, what it is, and how we can interact with it to learn to control it, and literally learn to fly. And so that's really exciting. But as well, there's application to health. And so we started on that part. We started to produce crystals that are grown very specifically in laboratory, then they're placed in a chamber that's very special, that spin a field very, very high velocity, and it creates a crystal that self-oscillate. And in that way, you could think of it as a little bit of like free energy or energy production. And it transforms the water molecules in your body. And we know now that it's the water that modulates DNA. So it's like actually structuring the water so that your DNA can be healthy, right? And so we've done thousands of tests in laboratory on plants and measuring the water in different ways, and it's solid. We have never got a negative result. And so we put it on the market about 8 months ago. The ARC crystals, yeah. And so we have those out there, and you can get them at arccrystals.com. And we're producing as many as we can, but we have to grow them in laboratory and cut them and manufacture them. So we're producing about 300 to 500 a month. So there's already a list, backup. But we're putting them out there, and the results are amazing. The feedback we're getting from people, it's exciting.
Because as much as technology is evolving, I guess that as human beings also, our openness, our level of, it's great if there's all this technology, but are we capable to fully
handle it
and live it? I mean, it's great if we can travel through space and be telepathic and do remote viewing and exchange on different levels and fly, but are we ready?
Well, I think so. I think we're definitely getting ready. And, at this point, ready or not, we gotta go, because it's humanity is really in need of a transformation, so that our environment, our challenges in terms of energy production, as well in terms of social structure, all this is about to change. Of course, if all of a sudden we can extract massive amount of energy from the vacuum, from the structure of space, which we're on the edge of doing and has been done in laboratories for a while now, we're really gonna change the way we do business, the way we do, financing around the world, the way we relate to each other, because if we're not fighting for oil all of a sudden, it's a different world. And so I think we're getting ready. Definitely when on this tour, when you look around, just like I said, it's no longer, just a very special group of people that are very interested in these kind of things. It's like opening up really to the mainstream, and people are starting to come on board. And the world is changing so rapidly at this point. I feel very confident that we're ready for that level of knowledge and technology, and it wouldn't be here if we weren't ready. I mean, it is consciousness that's leading the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to believe that, as you say in your presentation, that we're alone in this huge universe.
Right. There's no doubt that.
How many planets?
I mean, this is at this point, it's really nice to see. It's accepted by the mainstream scientific community. There's no doubt we're not alone in this universe. At this point, in a very conservative survey of the amount of planets in our galaxy alone that can sustain life. These are planets that are, far enough from the sun that they're not burning, that they're, just the right temperature.
They're habitable.
They're habitable. There's most likely water on them. We're finding water everywhere we look in the universe. Spectral lines of water. We see this water out there. So there's about 40 billion of these planets in our galaxy alone. And there's at least 2 trillion galaxies out there in the universe. I mean, the amount of planets with life on it is staggering.
Yeah.
And so there's no doubt, and most physicists at this point will admit, there's life out there, and there's most likely life that is much more advanced than us. Because, million year ahead of our evolution is not that much in galactic time. Right. So there's planets that probably have a million years. What does your cell phone look like a million years from now? Right? What does your computer look like? You can probably get in a ship a million years from now and go across the galaxy, just like you get in a ship right now that we call an airplane, and go to Paris. Right? 100 years from now, back in time, getting in a metal object that went from Geneva to Paris was inconceivable, right? And that was only 100 years.
Yeah.
So imagine, and this is coming because gravity control is coming, folks. It's happening.
For us to communicate with them or to receive information with them, because I guess they have the technology, but once again, is it crystals like this, or what does it take really to receive? Because I guess they could transmit to us all this, and I've been speaking to Dranvallo, Melchizedek, and Greg Braden, and all these guys, and it feels like sometimes they receive some kind of information like that, very advanced, from other civilization. Do you also receive that, or can we receive that?
I think so. I think I think they've been around for a very long time. That's what I showed in the presentation yesterday. I mean, we're finding artifacts with clear evidence of extraterrestrial contact, and some of these artifacts are carbon dated at like 14,000 years old. So like they exceed, the meltdown of the last ice age. I mean, there's evidence that there was a much more advanced civilization on our planet pre-cataclysmic that, left vestiges all around the world, and thousands of them. And many of these ancient civilizations that we have record of, like the Maya and the Inca, the Egyptian and all, they actually just stumbled onto these temples they just found in Guatemala again like thousands of pyramids, you know, and so I think they've been around for a very long time.
And sharing with us?
And sharing with us. I think, you know, they've been waiting for us to be ready.
They left clues.
They left clues of like higher knowledge, you know, in symbols, in writings, in temples, in buildings, technique, and so on. And I think we're decoding this finally. We're finally there where we're getting it. And it's, like I said, it's not just like the out there people on the bleeding edge that are doing it. Like archaeologists all around the world are starting to admit, like, probably there was an advanced civilization on our planet. Probably history has to be rewritten, and probably there's something really profound we have to learn there. And it's really exciting to see, because when we get the consensus of that many scientific people, scientific mind, engineers, architects, you know, physicists, biologists, and all this, and we get that amount of brain power behind it, it's gonna open up very, very fast, and we're gonna discover things that are gonna really blow our minds. Yeah.
In France, we see it with Macron, you know, our president. He's chasing whistleblowers and all this, and people that are sending information out there. Do you think it's threatening for some people still to talk about these technologies? Do you feel threatened sometimes?
Definitely. You know, there is, you know, still a lot of resistance. There, you know, there's some resistance, but the cat's out of the bag at this point. And I think a lot of people know it, and a lot of people feel it, and whether they're in institutions, in some universities, or they're inside agencies or governmental agencies, or inside the political system, or the financial structure, I think people are awakening, like they're popping everywhere. And I don't think you can put the lid back on it. Doesn't matter how much you try, the cat is not going back in the bag. And so I would suggest to go with the flow at this point, and actually support whistleblowers, people that are out there trying to, you know, I mean, look at it, Lilou. Only a few weeks ago, files about UFO and military personnel, you know, encounters with UFO were published in the New York Times. You know, these files came straight out of the Pentagon. I mean, this is a New York Times that's as mainstream as it gets. These files are confirmed from the Pentagon. You know, they were released for the public to see. I mean, this is pretty straight up disclosure. Anybody that says, you know, these things are not real, well, you know, this is straight out of, you know, the Pentagon, and this is official telemetry from Air Force bases that like are chasing the UFOs, that are filming the UFOs. Actually, one of the films that was released is an object that is actually going in and out of underwater, over water, underwater. I mean, it's ISOs, you know, some submerged unknown objects that are flying around in the water. And I think that's as well, like, not so well understood, not so well known. There's not just UFOs, but there's these objects as well in the water all around the world.
And intraterrestrial, because Ranvalo speaks a lot of intra.
Yeah, that too, they might be. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are happening in Antarctica. We're not quite sure, but there's definitely something happening in Antarctica, you know, that might have something to do with intra-Earth being, people that are living, you know, within. They could be underground bases deep. I mean, if you have a civilization that has a technology that's allowing them to come across large distances in our galaxy, or even intergalactic, you know, there's probably nothing that would stop them from setting up a base in Antarctica, deep under the ice or deep under the ground, and so on. So there is all kinds of things we're discovering, including artifacts all around the world that really don't belong, that really, you know, blows all the earlier theories about the evolution of man, you know, how we, you know, develop our technology and where we're coming from, and even where the genes of the human beings came from, like of the Homo sapien, that maybe we didn't quite just go from the monkey stage to Homo sapien, going through, you know, the Neanderthal and all this stuff, but that there was actually an intervention.
Like what kind? Because you don't develop that too much in your presentation. You put a question mark there.
Yeah, well, I showed I showed actually a paper from Crick's that you know, the biologist that discovered or defined the structure of DNA and got the Nobel Prize for it. And then in 1972, he finally you know, wrote a paper. And I showed the abstract of the paper in my presentation, where he concludes that life on Earth probably, he called it panspermia directed panspermia, which basically says that, like, life on Earth probably occurred because it was implanted there by intelligent beings. This is one of the greatest scientific mind geneticists that looked at the human genes and all this, and that, you know, and came to these conclusions, right? And it should have made the news then. But
which year was that? That was a long time ago.
He wrote the paper in 1972, and you know, and then I showed as well, like, well, there actually is evidence, because at one point, all of a sudden, the hominids doubled their brain size, and it's not clear how that actually happened in the evolution. And you know, their body stature became much smaller. They doubled their brain size. It's not the kind of thing that nature would do if nature was trying to make sure that the system, you know, we lost our hairs, you know, to keep us warm. You know, this is not like a natural lineage of evolution that you would expect. And so, you know, and then I showed, like, that the work of William Brown and others, geneticists, have isolated what exactly happened to the human gene that made the brain double, and it looks a lot like what we do when we do GMOs. It looks a lot like, you know, a fused gene in the middle of the genome to produce that result. Like, it looks just like what we do when we engineer genes in modern scientific laboratories. And so
we're not organic. That's not good.
Well, it's always organic, meaning, you know, maybe they implanted a gene of a more advanced species that had a larger brain and mixed it with us so that we would double our brain size, you know, and it produced us. That's a good thing.
Like, I had interviewed Dolores Cannon when she was still alive, and she said that during some experiment, it was clear that we are like an experiment for others out there, like other galaxies. They're kind of, there's a test going on.
Right.
It didn't go quite like it was meant to, or something. No?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
So they're spying on us from out there. Maybe?
Well, you know, there's a lot of evidence as well that there was, like, structures on the moon, on Mars. You know, like, if you were to put as Crick described, you know, if you were to, like, infuse life on a planet, right? You're very advanced civilization. You find a planet that doesn't have much life on it. You do a little engineering. You start putting stuff on there, and then you infuse life. And, well, you'd probably put some base not too far away. You know, the backside of the moon would be a nice place. You know, and you'd keep an eye on them and see how they do.
And you couldn't intervene? You couldn't really?
Well, you probably wouldn't want to, because you would want them to grow and evolve and learn the lesson they need to learn before you give them, you know, technology that
they can handle.
Yeah, exactly. You hope that, and probably if they develop technology that's kind of dangerous, you'd probably kind of try to, like, put a lid on it. And there's a lot of military personnel that has come forward in both Russia America and England talking about during the Cold War when there was, and things heated up, that there was ships that showed up over bases and, you know, turned things off and cooled things down. You know, so
Yeah.
there's...
It's hard to believe that the bad guys would not put some energy into utilizing this in a wrong way.
Well, you know...
Or the crystal, I mean, even the crystal, can it be turned in a...
I don't think
Bad
so. You know, not when we get to a certain level of technology, what happens is that the universe is a feedback, and when you get farther and further in advanced technology, the feedback loop becomes shorter and shorter. You know, the karma, and so at one point, if you try to hurt others, you just hurt yourself really bad, really fast.
Even more now, it feels.
Yeah. I mean, the feedback loop feels like it's getting shorter and shorter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you intend something, and it's amazing how fast it manifests. And so, you know, I think that you know, I really believe the universe is fail-safe that way. A civilization that's destructive, they don't make it very far. They just self-destruct.
Yeah.
You know, in a civilization that realized that it's all about connection, it's all about collaboration, not competition. That we're all in the same boat, that we're all connected, and that's what the equations actually show, is that every proton is connected to every other proton, that everything is entangled, and there's an information flow through the universe, and actually that information flow we call mass. That's what the equation we call energy. What we call energy and mass is actually the information moving through the network of the universe. And when you realize that, of course, very advanced technology becomes available to you. But then you realize at the same time that since we're all connected, there's no reason to destroy other things or others, because when you do that, you're
It impacts us.
Yeah, it impacts us. You're destroying yourself. You know, it's all connected. And we see it on our planet. We've done a lot of destruction, and we're in a very short amount of time, you know. In 150 years of technological development, we're on the brinks of ecological collapse. And we have this opportunity to make this transition. And I think we're making it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what we're doing here, what we do in our everyday life, it's impacting the rest of the universe.
Yeah, everything we do.
Beyond this information being shared, beyond...
Yeah, beyond what we can experience in our, you know, circle of influence, we're actually having an influence on the whole, because we're all connected. We're made out of these atoms. We're made of 100 trillion cells. Each cell is made of 100 trillion atoms. It's an extremely complex system that we are part of, that we call our body. And
only in the present can we live that, because you're saying otherwise the universe is always late.
It's always late, because everything outside of you actually takes time for you to experience.
Right.
I mean, the stars out there, when it's a long distance, more obvious to realize, right? Stars out there, they could be gone, and it would take thousands, millions, billions of years before we'd know some of these stars that are far, because the light's still traveling. Well, you know, it's the same thing when we see each other. The light has to travel to you, and, you know, back to my eye. You know, when I touch you, the signals have to get to my brain. Everything outside of you is late to experience, but only within your center is your present.
Yeah.
Right? And in that center, you're in connection with the whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are starting to discover. It's starting to open up, that the information is within them. You know, that high knowledge and creativity and all this, it happens not necessarily by deduction, you know, by reasoning or deduction, but actually by instinctive notion, by opening up to the information and letting it flow through you. And then maybe after it flows through, and you know, when you look at all these great minds that we had, you know, in our history, they all talk about that. They all talk about intuition and gut feeling that they had, and then maybe after you intellectualize it, maybe you find, you know, now it's important to go and write the equation and try to figure out, actually, because that gives you the details. But the impulse, the knowledge, it comes from within you. You know,
That's how you make your discoveries.
Yeah, and when you teach people, you're not teaching them, you're just helping them to remember. And that's why people react so amazingly in those talks, is because they remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it comes from them. It's not like it's going in them, it's coming from them. They go, oh yeah, that seems really correct. That seems right.
They're asking arccrystal.com, is it what you said?
Yeah, arc crystal,
RK.
Yeah.
Crystals.
Crystals with an S.com.
Yeah, you'll find it through Nassim's website. Last thing, Peru? You're taking a group in November in Peru?
The other website is resonance.is. That's our nonprofit foundation. And
that needs your support if you can do it.
Yes, yeah, we need support.
For more research.
Right, for research. And, we have so many amazing theoretical and experimental physicists that want to work with us, but we don't have the capacity to support them. So it's like it would help us a lot. But
Peru, November.
Peru in November. We did Egypt last year. It was amazing. It was like over the top.
How many people?
We had 200 people.
Wow.
Now in Peru we can only take about 150, 170. So you gotta get in early because it's filling up very quick. It's
gonna
be
around the corner.
Yeah, it's gonna be an amazing 16-day trip. All of we're gonna do so many amazing temples, so many places people don't go. We have amazing archaeologists, people that worked at Machu Picchu for years in archaeology, digging and finding things, and that actually bought land in that region, and that are gonna show us things that nobody gets to see. And then we're gonna go to Bolivia, Lake Titicaca, and all this, and we're gonna, we're gonna do all these
pyramids there too.
Right, and we're gonna have the crystals, so everybody gets a crystal, and then we place the crystal. We put the crystals together because they stick together, and we make 64 matrices that amplifies the field tremendously. When we did that in Egypt, it was so powerful.
I can't believe you did that in those triangle buildings.
Yeah, those triangle buildings. It was very powerful. That night, I think everybody that was there didn't come back the same.
You gotta measure all this. We want to see the.
Yeah. There was some measurements, but
cool.
And they weren't done by us. But we're excited about Peru. It's gonna be an amazing trip. So if you can join us in Peru, come on in, and then all the people that cannot come, we're gonna link up with you guys, and we're gonna do a global, connection a bunch of times during the trip. So stay tuned for it.
Yeah. And we recorded Nassim's talk here in Toulouse, 4 hours talk.
Yep.
So that will be translated in French and in English, and we want to have Nassim again here in Europe. Next time, Belgium, Geneva. It's in French, but we'll subtitle it, in English.
In English, yes.
Because he speaks French. Oh my God, of course. We're going to do a little live in French now, so we'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching.
It's so good to see
Big
you
kiss.
all. Thank you.
Much love.
Bye.
Bye-bye.